This is an information webinar providing an overview of the main elements and considerations in moving forward to the full application stage to Tier 2 Tranche 2. This presentation and additional scheme guidance is also available on the DARE website and will last around 45 minutes. The objective of this webinar is to provide you with more information on what is required to submit a full application to FBIS Tier 2 Tranche 2. It will also provide more background to the scheme and update you on the outcome of the expression of interest stage and enable you to consider key questions before you decide to continue with a full application to Tier 2. The RDP Farm Business Improvement Scheme comprises both capital and non-capital schemes. Tier 1 is a smaller capital scheme to support farm efficiency, mainly machinery and equipment, whereas Tier 2 is support farm transformation. This section is about the requirements for Tier 2. Under Tier 2, there has already been one tranche which is nearing completion, with the vast majority of projects complete and now operational. Beyond this current RDP, please bear in mind that as part of the development of the agricultural policy framework, we are developing policy proposals for future capital support alongside knowledge, technology transfer and supply chain measures. All applications to FBIS Tier 2 must contribute to the key themes of the scheme, and these form part of the scoring mechanism which is used to assess and score applications. Given the very high level of demand, it will only be those projects that contribute best to these themes that will stand the best chance of obtaining funding. The themes are on-farm resource and production efficiency, environment, animal and plant health, health and safety on farms, and contribution to sustainable growth. Potential applicants need to be aware that, given the level of interest from the expression of interest, it will be a highly competitive scheme. Applicants must also weigh up the costs involved in applying, as well as whether an application can be made in sufficient time and, if successful, can be completed within 12 months of any letter of offer that may issue. For example, considerations will need to be given to the current market pressures in relation to costs and availability of supply. Now let's look at what's involved in the application process itself. This slide lists the key requirements in making an application in no particular order. Potential applicants need to know that it requires time, effort and cost to gather all this information to the required format. I will cover these later in the presentation. The full application will be made online through the usual EU grant system and will enable key information entry and uploads and submission of your application. The system will be available from the opening date. The elements required include Farm Business ID, indication of support letter from your bank, planning permission or certificate of lawfulness, or making it safer certificate, a minimum of 2 quotations for all items expenditure, the business plan narrative, which will be covered in a separate session, a business plan planner, which will be in the section following that. Supporting evidence for baseline information can come from accounts and benchmarking data, evidence of supply integration, nitrates calculation before and after your investment, manure and slurry storage calculation before and after. The amount of grant available to an applicant will depend on whether you have received capital grant assistance previously under FBIS, Tier 1, Tier 2 or European Innovation Partnerships under this current Rural Development Programme. Tier 2 is about projects costing $30,000 and above to an unlimited value. However, grant support is 40% of eligible costs up to a grant maximum of $250,000. Any applicant who previously received funding under FBIS Tier 1, Tier 2 EIP can apply for FBIS Tier 2, but the total amount received cannot exceed $250,000 across all. Examples of eligible investments that may contribute to the themes include construction of a new replacement milking parlour with no increase in livestock numbers, low energy automated production systems for horticulture, GPS agricultural systems include auto steer for tractors, new adaptations of implements to make use of GPS, global positioning system, precision agriculture, etc. Investments in environmentally sustainable projects that encourage and support extended grazing and better farmyard management are encouraged. There were a number of expressions of interest that include areas that are clearly not eligible under Tier 2. This list is an example of those areas that have been taken from the expression of interest forms that would not be eligible for grant assistance. It is important to consider if the area you're applying for grant assistance is eligible under the scheme rules. If not, you may waste time, incur costs applying, and your application will be rejected. This is not a definitive list. If your project is primarily involved in ineligible areas or activities, the whole application may be deemed ineligible. Where your project lists largely eligible investments, the smaller ineligible items would not attract grant aid. The business plan narratives allow you to tag those which you are not seeking grant but may contribute to the project. A number of the expressions of interest submitted indicated that construction was proposed, but stated that planning permission or certificate of lawfulness was not applicable. It is important to stress that applications for projects which involve any construction work which is considered as development must have the appropriate approval in place before Tier 2 applications submitted. Whether full planning permission or CLUD is required will depend on a number of things, including physical elements such as the size of the proposed construction, for example, greater than 500 square metres, and its location less than 75 metres from a third-party dwelling. Advice should be sought from your local planning authority. Local councils regulate development under the Planning Act Northern Ireland 2011. It is important to stress that all tier applications which involve development require either full planning permission or certificate of lawfulness. Construction works which are not considered as development. If a proposed construction work is all internal, does not increase the footprint, the height of the building, does not change the external materials of a building, is not a material change of use, in this case agricultural use, does not contravene conditions of any previous planning approval. In terms of previous planning approvals, if, for example, an existing shed has planning approval which specifically said it could not be used for livestock, any new proposals to use the building for livestock would likely require new planning approval, and advice again should be sought from your local planning authority. Aside from the obvious development like new builds and extensions to existing buildings, these examples indicate other types of development which are likely to require planning permission or a CLUD. New buildings on an out farm, construction of laneways, underpasses, temporary or movable calf, igloo or hutch housing depending on the number or scale. Applicants must ensure they have considered the need for planning, certificate of lawfulness, and seek advice from their planning authority. Where any construction is being funded or where funded equipment is being placed in a new existing building, a currently registered chartered structural or civil engineer will need to be involved in your project. If it is a new construction, the engineer should design the structure in compliance with the relevant codes. These specifications may be required to obtain accurate quotes at application stage. If successful, the engineer will need to produce drawings and specifications for accurate quotes and confirm the structure meets these specifications at claim stage. If equipment is being placed in an existing building, the engineer will need to confirm that it is fit for purpose at application stage. If the project includes any precast concrete products, the maximum load bearing will also need to be confirmed by a registered chartered engineer. It's also important to notify the relevant authorities where necessary, for example, Northern Ireland Environment Agency, for NAP notifications for a new silo. This slide covers health and safety requirements and the minimum quality standards. On-farm construction is treated the same as a construction site and subject to health and safety executive inspections. It is covered under the construction design and management legislation. This deals with the design, the construction, the outworking and the operation in a safe manner of your investment. This requires the appointment of a principal contractor and CDM coordinator, principal designer, and the production of a health and safety file. CE marking for all structural steelwork requires contractors making trusses to undergo factory production control certification and to be CE marked. Welders must be qualified. You also must supply a declaration of performance for all structural steel, concrete slats, wall panels, etc. at claim stage. All applications will be assessed for potential impacts on air quality, water quality, climate change, biodiversity, and proximity to designated sites. Projects which have a negative effect on the environment will not be supported. Regardless of any planning approval or CLUD, all applications will be assessed for potential environmental impacts, and in particular those for construction or equipment which could increase livestock capacity. For many proposals, this assessment will be relatively simple, in particular for most equipment-only projects. However, some applications may require further detailed assessment. Guidance on environmental considerations are available online. Terms of environmental benefits. Funding only for investments to go beyond the minimum statutory obligations, that we do not provide funding to meet the current legislation or requirements, but funding for going beyond and scoring favourably for going beyond will be included. Ammonia mitigation will be important. For example, covering above ground stores, use of low emission spreading equipment, air scrubbers. Carbon reduction in increasing important area could include areas like improved animal performance, reduced water waste or energy. Reduce soil compaction through use of GPS guided precision technology. Reduce pesticide use through precision technology. You may need to consider if any of your proposed investment incorporate any mitigation measures against ammonia emission or investments that contribute positively to the environment. All projects will undergo an environmental assessment and will be scored, and we will seek to fund projects that have the highest environmental benefits as one of those key considerations. The Making It Safer risk assessment is an eligibility essential, and it is important that it is up to date. Even if you complete this assessment in the past, you'll need to do it again for this application that comprises a simple risk assessment online across the 4 main areas of slurry, animals, falls and equipment. It is your plan for use by you to identify risks to be addressed and should be revisited regularly. This tool also allows at the end of it to tag where your potential investments could be, and also where any farms or out farms are. This and other safety awareness and signposting is available through the FarmSafeNet web link provided on this presentation, and through the HSE NI website and the Farm Safety Partnership information. There will be a short instruction video available on the DARE website on how to complete your Making It Safer risk assessment and how to place locations on your map. In terms of pollution prevention control, this relates to intensive pig and poultry units over the specified limit thresholds and must obtain a permit from Northern Ireland Environment Agency to operate poultry, 40,000 bird spaces, pigs, 750 sows or 2,000 production pigs over 30 kilograms. More guidance is available on the website. The business plan narrative is a key element and the largest component of the upload and the work area you'll need to complete, and is the key area which is scored in the assessment process. It must be accurate, up to date, and include specific detailed information on your proposed project, including areas like objectives, contribution to the themes, detailed requirements such as dimensions and sizes of equipment and breakdown of construction elements, detailed costs associated with those, and your methods of financing and what the future plans are for your business. Importantly, it must correspond to the information you provide in other documents, such as the farm business plan or cash flows, the nutrient calculators, and the bank letter. A separate section on the business plan narrative is planned to be held on the 20th, and following that, the calculator on the 26th. It is important to note that only applications that can demonstrate viability by year 5 on a whole farm basis, not just your investment, can only be considered for assessment. This is a pass-fail criteria, so it's important to consider whether your project investment will lead to a positive viability in 5 years. It's also important to realise that some investments may not present viability. In terms of quotations, all items of proposed expenditure must be supported by 2 quotations. They must be comparable and include details such as supplier details, the date, no more than 6 months old, and a detailed description for the goods and services and equipment included on the quoted price. The Farm Business Planner or Cash Flow Calculator will be available online, and it will be covered in a separate presentation on the 26th. It is based on each year across 5 years without investment and then with investment. And output from that, there will be a summary and detailed output along with a gross value added calculation generated, which enables us on the assessment process. A blank indication of support letter for the scheme can be found on their website. It has been designed to encourage applicants to carefully consider the needs and circumstances of their farm business before proceeding with an application, and will provide some assurance that the applicant can access funds to complete the project. In terms of manure and slurry management and storage, applicants will be required to provide manure slurry capacity on their farm before and after the project. In other words, using the calculators for this on the gateway, manure slurry storage systems, including any new design features to minimise the release of greenhouse gases and ammonia. Detailed information on how the manure slurry will be managed in the future. Manure slurry storage calculators will help calculate weekly slurry, dirty water, manure production and current storage capacity, and are available online on the DARE website. It is important that applicants demonstrate there is a market for their produce. Information is required on planned markets for the main commodities produced on farm. It must include, for example, details of main customers, current and planned, estimated amount of produce supplied and the price guarantees, etc. And also provide relevant supporting evidence such as letters of interest, written contracts, etc. In terms of the timeline, the scheme will be open for approximately 12 weeks, and the Minister is expected to announce the opening date in the coming weeks. Successful applicants will have up to 12 months to fulfil the letter of offer and complete all aspects of the projects. Changes are not permitted to your application after it's been submitted, although clarification may be sought. Other key resources and assistance will be made available on the DARE website ahead of the scheme opening, and our frequently asked questions will be updated on a regular basis. Obviously, contact your local planning authorities and keep in contact with them is important, and there's a link there in terms of making a planning application online. After looking at this resource, if you have any further queries, you can contact the Tier 2 inbox at tier2@dare-ni.gov.uk. So, for those who are going to proceed, including their nominated agent assisting in their application, the further events notification and invites will go out for the business plan narrative initially planned for the 20th of October, and the farm business planner, the cash flow, on the 26th of October.